Hey everyone, welcome back to my next book preview video. This week we have Sketching from the Imagination, Magic and Myth. So a quick look at the cover there. I quite like this cover even compared to some of the other books in the series. I think this one stands out a little bit to me, maybe just because I like fantasy stuff. So let's get straight into previewing this book, and feel free to pause the video if you want to see if you can find any of your favourite artists on there. Hopefully my camera is focusing well enough. So as usual, I'm just going to preview some random pages of this whilst I ramble on. Feel free to mute me. So this just literally arrived today in the post for me. I think a lot of you guys will probably already own some of the Sketching from Imagination books. Quite a nice set of books, quite a nice series of books I will say, by 3D Total Publishing. One thing I will say actually, if I go back, I've only had a really quick look off camera, but I was a bit worried that some of these images like this one looked a little bit blurry in person. So I was worried for a second that it was like, I don't know, bad printing or something on certain drawings, but then some of them look really crisp, so I think it's just the actual illustration. So for example, when I moved on to a page like this, I could see it's actually really crisp and really nice printing quality. So I think it's just more down to each individual painting. So Sketching from the Imagination books are usually, well, they consist of 50 different artists, and it's their take on, well, whatever the genre of the book is. So this one, very fantasy-esque, magic and myth. From what I can tell, it really does consist a lot of things in terms of, well, I guess fantasy and magic can really cover a wide range of subjects. So we've got anything from little cartoony characters to quite dark arts looking things. Some of these things look like they could be in Dark Souls, to environments, animals. And they also seem to range from black and white, inking, sketching, to some more painterly style ones, and more like finely rendered ones. If you've seen any of my book previews before, you will know that I am quite a big fan of sketching compared to like fully rendered. And I would say from what I can tell that a lot of this book is probably more black and white and sketchy than fully rendered. But as mentioned, there is colour and paintings throughout as well. So it probably depends more on the individual artist than anything else. Now, before I got hold of this book, I will admit I almost didn't buy this one because I don't actually recognise any of the 50 artists in it. But I just thought the actual subject matter was pretty cool, and on the preview panel for this, on the 3D Total website, some of the pages and designs just looked really cool, so I couldn't resist. And it's something that I have thought before with quite a few of the Sketching from Imagination book series. I was a little bit worried not knowing the artist, because, well, let me interrupt myself for a second just to say that this page is really cool. Looks like something from like a concept design book for the Diablo games or something, but really cool designs. Anyway, sorry, what I was going to say is that it's both a pro and a con that this has 50 different artists, because it does mean there's definitely going to be something that you like in here regardless of your preference, but on the other hand there's also going to be some stuff that you don't like. Considering that that's across 50 different artists though, and there's over 300 pages in here, I think close to about 320, I think it's a pretty safe bet that you will find something you like in here. And they're not overly expensive books, these ones either. I did notice when I was flicking through this that quite a lot of the illustrations reminded me of the fantasy of like Evan Amundsen. If any of you guys have seen his work, I've got a book here which I will link to in the description box below. And that's a really cool sketchbook, just full of fantasy and, well, just really cool creations. I will also put links to where you can get this from in the description box below. But again, I think that the variety of artists in here is kind of the strong point. We've got these more sketchy styles, these more rougher concepts, and then we have sort of cleaner line art that look like you could just colour them in. And of course, it does link to each artist's Instagram page or social media page. And the downside to this is after you buy one of these books, you will most definitely find yourself spending ages on Instagram, searching for people, finding new artists. And if you're anything like me, you probably follow way too many already. But no, seriously, it is really cool to find some nice new artists. And this book is considered more of a tips and tricks book. I always think it's somewhere between a tutorial book and an artist's gallery book. Each artist seems to have a good couple of pages, usually working through their concept, different ideas on whatever their project is they're working on, with some tips and techniques sprinkled throughout. And I will say actually there's quite a lot of, maybe not dark arts, but a lot of fantasy does border on some quite dark, freaky stuff sometimes. There is another book in this series already called Dark Arts, but again, it does remind me of another book. Flash it up on screen. I'll put links in the description box again. This is a really cool one. So be sure to check that out if you're into the whole sort of dark souls fantasy type thing. But again, in contrast here, you've got a very different style, quite a cartoony one, almost quite a, I don't want to say simplified, it might offend someone, but you know what I mean. And I did see this one before. Again, this reminds me of Evan Amundson's work a little bit with the little dwarves and stuff. I think it's pretty incredible all the detail that is fit onto some of these pages though. Like these ones, for example, there really are some good artists in here. This is probably one of my favourites. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that Photoshop filter where it sort of changes a photo into line art. But the fact that people have drawn these is really cool. For me, I find these kind of books more for motivation, inspiration, and maybe just coming up with some ideas, because especially with fantasy, it's quite overwhelming. And yeah, it's overwhelming in a nice way, but sometimes you don't know where to start or what to draw. So it might just help you with a little bit of art block, if nothing else. I will put links as usual in the description box below to where you can buy this book. And when I did flick through, I thought this one was really nice. It kind of has, it almost looks like an ambient occlusion type shading to it, but I'm not sure if that's what it is. Anyway, now that we're getting to the end, just to summarise without repeating myself too much, I find these books are really good just for finding new art. I find them nice for picking up tips and tricks, inspiration, motivation, and general drawing ideas. I think you guys will probably be able to tell from this preview whether there's something in here that takes your fancy. I would definitely be shocked if there wasn't at least a few artists in this book that everybody could enjoy though. And a quick look there at the back of the book, just to show the other books in the series. You might have come across them before, but I think you get the idea from that. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Let me know what you think to this one in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, and switch notifications on for future content. I'll stick a link below to where you can watch more of my art book preview videos. Thanks so much for watching, everyone.